Hey, we're kicking it down here at the EA3. I've got the Saboteur, lead designer Tom French. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing excellent.
So you guys have been working on the Saboteur for quite a while now. Actually, you know what? Let's conduct the rest of this interview with terrible French accents. Can you do that?
I don't know, my voice is starting to go out. It'd probably be really terrible.
Right. I'll spare you then. Let's just talk about the game then.
Okay.
So the Saboteur, you guys announced it a long time ago, and then there's sort of radio silence for a year or two.
Yeah.
Kind of break it down for us from the top. What is the mix of stealth and action? How's the game kind of play out?
We really want to facilitate the player playing the game the way they want to play it. Like, we have sneaking type components. It's definitely part of the fantasy of being a Saboteur, is to be able to sneak around, break a neck, and steal a disguise and get into the heart of the Nazi base. But what we did is we designed our missions around this concept we call quiet in, loud out. And so you go, there's a way to go in quietly. You could go in guns a-blazing, but the Nazis are dangerous. You're likely to get Sean killed if you do that. And so it's probably not your best approach. But then when you get in there and you get to your objectives, you're going to have to do something that's big. And like we want to go from that quiet fantasy to the loud fantasy of the kind of the blowing shit up, basically, is what we want to do. It's kind of a pandemic kind of mantra, big action. And so the game really lets you kind of go between those, and we wanted to tell a personal story inside of that space and kind of separate ourselves from the World War II genre.
Your main character is like this sort of race car driver turned freedom fighter. Like, I heard this premise and I was like, man, that's a little outlandish, but not so much, because it's like based on a real dude. Can you kind of tell us what the historical inspiration was?
So, the historical inspiration comes from somebody named William Grover Williams, who was a driver for the French Bugatti racing team. And when the war happened, he was half English and half French, so he fled France when the Nazis occupied France. And because these race car drivers back in the day, they weren't as safe as they are now. Like, they had these little cars that basically with engines and four wheels that drove at like 200 miles an hour, and they wore leather caps for protection, which doesn't sound very safe. And so they're really like daredevils by nature. And so, like, hearing that concept, again, like you were saying, it's almost unbelievable. It's almost too good to be true in its own way too. And so we took that as inspiration and really made our own character, crafting off of that. And again, just trying to separate ourselves more from the war and doing everything about that. And so Sean's story isn't about being a soldier. It's about or caring about the war. He really doesn't even care about the war at the beginning of the game. He cares about racing and his friends. And then when they get messed with and somebody close to him dies, it's really about hating the Nazis and that kind of personal motivation and vengeance.
You guys have a sort of a fictionalized version of the Moulin Rouge kind of sort of red light district in Paris. Like, what is all that about? How does that tie into like the mission structure? What are you going to do over there besides the obvious?
Look at boobs. So we really wanted to deliver, again, to kind of separate ourselves from the war genre, is just really have different mature themes in our game. And Paris has this kind of inherent sexuality to it, and we really wanted to represent that. And yeah, there's the Moulin Rouge, and so in our game we have right across from the Moulin Rouge is what we call the Belle de Nuit, and the Belle is it's a cabaret brothel that Sean, when he escapes from Germany at the early parts of the game and kind of goes into hiding for a little bit, he hides out in the Belle de Nuit. And so there's definitely that kind of mature nature. So there's women dancing and this kind of sexual nature to it. But it's definitely where a lot of the early story parts of Paris for Sean really comes into play.
Talk about the sort of the inspirations behind the visual design, all the kind of black and white to colorized sort of interesting stuff.
When we knew we were going to build occupied France, you think of France and it's this colorful, vibrant, lively world, and sticking Nazis in the middle of that, they look kind of out of place and they don't really belong there. And so we really needed to beat that over the player's head, and so that's where we came up with the Will to Fight, which is the black and white and color concept. And so for us, the black and white is the occupation, and we use reds in there like Sin City to kind of accent things or just make things more dramatic, or also kind of just pull the player's attentions to things. And we learned a lot actually from the Sin City movie about just how to pull off black and white, because black and white it seems really simple, but it's extremely complicated behind the scenes. And then from there, we really wanted to have the player make an impact in the world. And so as you play the missions of the game and you do these big grand acts of defiance and sabotage against the Nazis, you'll bring color back into the world. And with the color, that for us, that means inspiration. It's not liberation. You're not like a one-man army, like mopping up the Reich by yourself, So you're going through and inspiring the world, and then with that inspiration will come the resistance, and that's where the gameplay elements of the World of Fight really comes into play.
Where are you at in development now, and when are we actually going to see it on shelves?
So we're still at a pre-alpha state. We're getting pretty close. The game's really shaping up really, really well, and we're getting really proud of it. But we're still not talking about dates yet for the game. Hopefully, but very soon we'll actually have a release date that we can talk about and announce.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll be sure to harass you again in the future. Cool. Thanks.
Perfect.
All right.